the last division, the Northwest Division, an off-season recap. We're going to do it right now because, Michael Bolton told me to.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and nobody's going to pop my red balloon. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers. Well, they're not hooking up with all customers, but they're hooking up all customers with a daily boost or bonus every day, all summer long. Go to FanDuel.com right now to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we're available on all platforms. So double bang and thumb and leave your comments down below. That is a great way of helping out the show in these lean months as we ramp back up. 3 months to go until the start of the NBA season. Almost on the dot. It is, because it's the 22nd of July here, and the season starts on the 22nd of October. Although, again, mate, we're a day off. Tomorrow, 3 months exactly. Let's talk about the final division again. Wanted a little bit more movement with some deals with at least one of these teams. Didn't happen. Okay, we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll revisit it if Lauri Markkanen is traded. But let's talk about what has actually happened in the Northwest Division across this NBA off-season. We'll look if teams got better, if they got worse, and how all of it fits in and makes sense. We are going to start with your one season removed NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. Did they get better or worse? They got worse for the second straight offseason because that Walmart money just isn't hitting like it used to. You can make as many excuses as you want about second aprons and all that sort of stuff, but when Boston is just extending everybody, it doesn't fly with me. It's garbage. They've cheaped out again, and it cost them. And we'll see if it costs them this season. Kroenke, out. All right. Let's talk about what happened. Because in the draft, I liked the pick they made. I liked them moving up. They had a pre-draft promise to Daron Holmes. They moved up to 22 to get him. I thought, great. We don't have to deal with DeAndre Jordan backup center minutes or whatever Zeke Naji is doing at this point. And then Daron Holmes in the first game of Summer League tore his Achilles tendon and he's out for the season. So that's a gigantic L, not only for Daron, who again I thought should have gone even higher than this, but for the Nuggets in general. There seems to be, right, I'm going to put this out there, wild speculation. There seems to be a big disconnect between head coach Michael Malone and ownership/front office, and there has been for a long time. They had to dump Jameer Nelson off this team so Malone would stop playing him and would start playing Jamal Murray. Michael Malone, it doesn't get talked about a huge amount, but we talk about Glenn Rivers and his obsession with veterans versus rookies. Malone is the same. He will refuse to play a younger player over a washed-up older player. Justin Holiday started games. DeAndre Jordan plays minutes. Now, I'm not saying that Malone is wrong in every one of these situations because I'm not sure that the guys that the Nuggets have drafted, Brown, Tyson, Pickett, Strauber, Watson, whoever they've drafted. Look, I like some of them, not all of them, whatever. But they are clearly saying, we're not going to let the veterans stick around, Mick. We want you to put faith in the younger guys. And at some point, there feels like there might be some sort of a schism. Something might happen where Malone's like, bro, why are you taking all the players away and making me play these young guys? And as much as I have criticized in the past Malone for some of these decisions, the Jameer Nelson one was stupid. Yeah, I might be on his side a little bit here because they are definitely cheaping out, and I wouldn't have the faith in the young guys as much as what this Denver. You have faith in a top 10 pick, top 6 pick. Good, do it. Play them. The 26th pick, the 35th pick? Absolutely not. Do not rely upon that. So they don't have Daron Holmes. Who do they bring in, though? Well, Russell Westbrook, Dario Saric, and then Trey Alexander and PJ Hall. I thought Trey Alexander should have been a first-round pick. I think what he did at Summer League shows that at least I was on sort of a right track there. I think he looked pretty good on a two-way deal. Again, will he get minutes? I think there is a distinct possibility that Trey Alexander ends up 2 years' time better than Christian Brown, better than Jalen Pickett, I think maybe Stroud, I don't know. I think he's going to be pretty good. PJ Hall, another guy that probably could have been or should have been drafted, ends up on a two-way. So Calvin Booth and his team did a fantastic job grabbing undrafted players on two-way contracts. I'm not saying they're going to play a huge amount, but there is an opportunity there for Trey. What they do, though, is bring in Russell Westbrook to replace Reggie Jackson as the backup point guard, because Jalen Pickett, I don't think, is going to be it. Westbrook is someone who, and I'm sure there is going to be at least one Westbrook fan, I use the term very generously, like insane person watching this show and listening. Russell Westbrook is not the player that he was. Russell Westbrook was not being held back by the Clippers. Insane behavior is insane behavior. Westbrook did improve in areas. He gave more effort on defense than he has for years. He still can't shoot. The free throws are still a problem. The shot selection is still a problem. The understanding your role is still a problem. If you cannot fit, Bones Highland, if you cannot fit alongside Nikola Jokic, pack it in. You're done. And that's what we're going to see. I do worry a little bit that with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leaving, that Michael Malone says, all right, we're going to start Westbrook alongside Jamal Murray, which is just disgusting. But I do worry about that. Now, Malone has liked Christian Brown in the past, so we'll see whether he gives Brown that starting job. And I would say it's still a 75% chance that Brown is the starter. But I can't rule out the Westbrook shenanigans. Regardless, Westbrook is going to have to take on some of KCP's minutes and Reggie Jackson's minutes. He probably gets 21, 22. We're not drafting him for fantasy. He can have some points league impact at times. And we saw Jamal Murray get injured a lot last season. And then Westbrook would, unlike Reggie Jackson, if Westbrook would start, we'd be way more interested in using him. Probably not in roto, definitely in points, and probably in categories for the right team. If you've got expanded benches, I think you might be able to consider him as a deeper, handcuffy sort of a player. But I also worry a lot about this fit and still the negative stuff that Westbrook brings. As for Šarić, started out last season well, struggled towards the end, was out of the Warriors rotation, but is he better than backup center DeAndre Jordan and Zeke Nagy? Probably, but that's what you're relying upon to back up Nikola Jokic. It's going to go terribly. You can't play Šarić and Jokic together, I don't think. I don't think that makes any sense defensively. Šarić is an unreliable outside shooter. He's a pretty good passer. He's a solid player. But he's got to play 15 minutes small ball center. And I'm not sure that giving him that player option made sense either. Who the hell else was signing him? Much like when they gave the player option to Reggie Jackson last offseason and had to give up 3 second-round picks to dump him, it's a similar spot. I don't understand the process that goes behind these moves. Who do they lose? Well, the big one is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and again, they are hoping, much like they hoped that Christian Brown could replace Bruce Brown last season, and he didn't. They thought Strouder or Tyson would, and none of that happened, is they're expecting that Christian Brown can replace KCP, and he's just not the same player. Brown is a solid enough guy, but I don't think he's got the upside of KCP, who's not a high upside player. Or maybe it's Julian Strouder who actually steps up. I think of Strouder more as a 3, a very small ball 4 versus a 2. But maybe it's Strouder that steps up, or as I mentioned, it's Westbrook. Reggie Jackson's gone. Fine. Justin Holiday's gone. Good, he was bad. Colin Gillespie's gone. Jay Huff is gone. And Braxton Key is gone. Gillespie landed in Phoenix. I think Jay Huff is an NBA player, but has never really had that opportunity. And honestly, is he better than like DeAndre Jordan? Probably. The other thing I didn't mention with the centers is this guy missed all of last season of Vlatko Čančar. He's back, and maybe he gets the backup center minutes over Šarić, which, if he's playing at the level he was before he tore his ACL, he's probably going to be a better option there for the Nuggets. Anyway, they got worse. Westbrook, Šarić, Alexander Hall in, Caldwell-Pope out. And really, like Jackson, Holiday, Gillespie, Huff, Key, they're not anything interesting. But losing KCP and replacing him with Westbrook and Alexander doesn't do enough for me. I think, I'd love to know what you guys think or how you view that, but I think it's without question the Nuggets got worse. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. In the summer, sports are a little bit thin on the ground. We've got baseball, that's ramped back up. WNBA is going at the All-Star game today. But we've got a lot of things that FanDuel is going to give you to get you excited because things are starting. NFL training camp and preseason starting soon. NBA or the Olympics. NBA preseason in a month or two. Futures are there for all those. Win totals are there. NHL, the same. But FanDuel's going to help you out because not only is baseball rolling and you can do all your betting action there, they're going to give you some boosts and bonuses every single day. Every customer gets at least a boost or a bonus every day, all summer long on FanDuel. So Go to FanDuel, go to FanDuel.com. Check it out, get started, and of course, don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, we are here talking about the off-season of the Northwest Division, recapping the moves that teams made in the draft, in free agency, and in trades, and we're seeing who got better and who got worse. We've done Denver now. Let's go on to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I think overall, it's probably neutral. Again, we're not grading this on internal improvement or returns from injuries from blokes on the roster, literally just the personnel moves. I could see this team, you look at them and go, well, I think maybe they got better, but I could also see an argument saying maybe they got a little bit worse. They drafted and traded up with the first-round pick and a first-round swap with the Spurs to pick number 8 for Rob Dillingham, who showed some stuff at Summer League. He is very small. He's very skinny. Summer League stuff coming in the next couple of days. He should be playing as the backup point guard or backup combo guard early this season. Terrence Shannon, who they got in the first round, put some big numbers up at Summer League. He is old. We expected that level of polish to be there in Summer League. Outside of the scoring, he impressed with a little bit of defense, but still I worry about overall how the impact is there. He's still going to be the 4th guard, I'm guessing, but injuries can always strike, and a useful pick at that spot in the draft, totally reasonable. I don't think there's star upside in Shannon, but that's fine. Who they signed in free agency, Jingling Joe Ingles, who has definitely lost multiple steps. He's like 35 or 36 off torn ACL 2 years ago. But on that Orlando Magic bench unit, which was awesome, he was a key part of it. And it's not quite a one-for-one replacement between him and Kyle Anderson. Anderson a better defender, Ingles a better shooter, but both guys can pass, and that's almost a one-for-one. Almost. Not quite. Ingles probably a little bit worse than Anderson, but almost a one-for-one. They bring PJ Dozier back, which Tim Connolly has an absolute obsession with. Dozier has been bouncing around. He's played for Denver before. He was in Boston for a bit. He's had some injuries. He played overseas last year. I don't think that Dozier's a capable NBA rotation player, but Connolly loves him, so we'll see. And then Jesse Edwards on a 2-way deal. The reason I think that they're neutral or maybe leaning worse is that they lost Kyle Anderson and they lost both backup point guards, Jordan McLaughlin and Monte Morris. Not to say that those guys dominated, because they didn't. And Ant Edwards will handle backup point guard role at times, and Alexander Walker can do it, but both of those guys' role is not as a point guard. So they're hoping that Rob Dillingham can just step up and be the immediate backup point guard, which can be fraught with danger. As we know what happens. Go check out Portland's team last year with their rookie point guard. We know what rookie point guards do, and they suck. They suck ass in a massive way. And that could be a problem. I guess, again, Alexander Walker, Ingles, Edwards, bunch of different guys can take that over. But if Conley goes down, they might be rooted. Yeah, that might be a real problem there. TJ Warren was on this team last season. He's not anymore. No idea if he's going to sign anywhere. And they traded Wendell Moore to the Pistons, who I don't quite think is an NBA player. So overall, Anderson, McLaughlin, Morris out, Ingles and Dozier in, and then the 2 first-round picks. So overall, I think that's a neutral. If Dillingham is good as a rookie, almost impossible, then they got slightly better. But again, I just don't see how there's any possibility that's the case. Argue this one with me, because there's no way you can argue anything else apart from the Oklahoma City Thunder getting better. Yeah, they did. There's just no argument about this, I don't think. Their first-round pick, or their first-round pick, number 12, Nikola Topic, who is one of the deepest voices of all time. He's recovering from a partially torn ACL. He could return in March or February. That's possible. I don't think he will. He was thought of as a top 4 player before the ACL tear news came out. So getting him at 12, redshirting him when they don't really need him at this point, totally a great move, I think. But he obviously doesn't help them this season. At pick number 26, they traded back into the first round to get Dylan Jones. And honestly, Sam Presti's one of the best GMs in the league. I think he's made a lot of questionable draft choices, and I think this is one of them. I don't think that was worth giving up to get into the first round to pick Dylan Jones. Dylan Jones is a guy that put up big numbers at Weber State. I watched him in Summer League, and a lot of the same problems I thought he would have were there. And when it gets to an NBA area, I think he could end up roddying us. And by roddying us, I mean being like David Roddy, which is terrible. He's got a few more skills there, but the shooting, the athleticism, the need for the ball in his hands. He's a good rebounder, and they need that. But I'm not really sure about that one. And then 38, AJ Mitchell. He's on a 2-way. That's a very early pick to be on a 2-way for AJ. Again, a subpar athlete. Does some interesting things. could have some minutes there, but honestly, like, he's just not going to play very much this season. They've got some really good development on their team, and they develop guys really well, so we'll see where Mitchell goes. I liked him. I thought he was an early second-round pick. We're right there. Just, not really certain on that one. But it sounds like I'm shitting on him. But they got Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso. So they're better. They're way better. I don't know whether Hartenstein starts. You would think that $87 million means that he starts, but not necessarily. That would mean playing Chet Holmgren at the 4. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. He should get 25 to 27 minutes a night. And he's going to be a very easy top 100 fantasy guy. Probably top 70, maybe higher. It'll be very interesting to see what they do with his usage, given the way that Tom Thibodeau suppressed that usage down unbelievably. Does it just bounce back up? And that would unlock a lot. And then Alex Caruso, we know the Rabbit Hunter's awesome. We know he's got somewhat of a limit on his minutes, and he won't need to play 35 on this team. 27, 28 a night is all it needs. Is he draftable in this squad? Probably. For category leagues, but not for points leagues. Wouldn't draft him for points at all. But for category leagues, probably is. I've been looking for those steals and hit some threes, but the upside there for Caruso is much less than it was last year. Now, they did lose one player, and he was a starter, but he didn't play starters minutes, and that's Josh Giddey. Giddey, at times, was replaced by Aaron Wiggins, or Cason Wallace, or Isaiah Joe in the second half. And with the way the team was constructed with Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he was sort of lost. Now, I think Giddey is almost definitely going to have a better season in Chicago. Not to say that that means he's a great player or that the Thunder didn't do a swindle here, because they did. But them losing Giddey, who was a 23, 24-minute-a-night player most nights, and replacing him with Caruso and Hartenstein is such a massive W. It's unbelievable. They also lose Gordon Hayward, who was putrid during all of his minutes and basically out of the rotation. He hasn't signed anywhere. Is he just done? Is that like the cliff? Has he hit it? Smashed headfirst into the wall? Another injury. Bismack Biyombo, also not re-signed. They needed some defensive strengthening and big man depth last season, but yeah, I think Bismack should just settle into, and maybe he's already has, but I feel like he's going to get some sort of official role with the NBA, working with the NBA Academy Africa. He seems to be really passionate about that stuff. They lose the Hall Pass legend Lindy Waters. He goes to Golden State. Mike Muscala retired. Olivier Sarr was dealing with an Achilles injury, so that's Alex's brother. He's not going to play. I still like Sarr a little bit, but he's not going to play. And Keontae Johnson, their late second-round pick, who currently is out of the league. And, yeah, he's got some troubling allegations in his past as well. They clearly got better. Hartenstein, Caruso. They were the number 1 seed last year. They would have to be the overwhelming favorite to be the number 1 seed again in the West. There's always going to be a little bit of like, how does Caruso and Hartenstein fit together? Figuring that out, but they could push 60 wins here. I think there's a huge shot of them pushing 60 wins. People underestimate how good Hartenstein and Caruso are, and this team could be like a legitimate juggernaut who could still position themselves to make more trades and upgrades through the rest of the season, which would be interesting. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Patience, passion, drive. It's the formula for a winning championship. It's the formula for a fantasy championship. It's the formula to keep your ride or die alive. And that's what eBay Motors does. They give you everything you need to maintain your car or level it up to peak performance. Fluffy dice, flame decals, things that matter. Milo tin can exhausts. What else? Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, you name it, they have got it over at eBay Motors. And you know that with eBay Motors that it's going to fit guaranteed, because that's what a guaranteed fit is. So your part fits your car or you get your money back, because with eBay Motors you're burning rubber and not cash. You got all the parts you need. It's the prices you want. So do everything you can to keep your ride or die alive with eBay Motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, well actually eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. All right. Check out Locked On Sports Today, the live 24/7 stream that we have over on YouTube, but also there's an individual podcast that goes through the top stories of the day with the local experts. Check it out across the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's go on to the next team in the Northwest Division, and it is the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland, at number 7, selected Donovan Clingan. There was some talk that they were moving up and trading up to get this guy. In the end, he falls to them. Again, Summer League thoughts coming soon. I would say that some of my concerns on Clingan were highlighted at Summer League. His fit on this team remains confusing. Will he play next to Ayton? Behind Ayton? Is Rob Williams alive? Where does he play? What does this team do? They are, for a team that is bad, weirdly stacked. So we can go through it. Like, okay, Ayton will start, Grant will start. You'd think Avdia will start. Simons will start. Sharp will start. Meaning Scoot Henderson, the number 3 overall pick, comes off the bench. Meaning the guy that started all of last season, Tamani Kamara, comes off the bench. Meaning Donovan Clingan, picked at number 7, comes off the bench. Meaning Rob Williams comes off the bench. How does any of that work? They are better. Now, when I put out a thing talking about the worst team in the NBA, a lot of people said, they think Portland will be the worst team in the NBA. I don't think there's any way, unless something catastrophic goes wrong, that is the case. They said, they've got to play in the tough Western Conference. Yeah, they did last season, and they weren't the worst team in the NBA. And you go into a situation, and this is not even included in this better ranking, but rookie ball handlers, bad. Scoot, year 2, should improve a lot. Does Jeremy Grant ever touch the court in March or April? I don't know. Denny Avdia, massive upgrade. They have to be considered better. They bring in Avdia, and then Bryce McGowan's on a 2-way. They lose Malcolm Brogdon, Ashton Hagans, Ibu Budgie, Taze Moore, the legend, and Moses Brown. I had the unfortunate experience of watching Moses Brown in person at Summer League. Who was he playing for? I think it was Houston. So I was watching, and then the Summer League doing the worst free throw shooting you've ever seen. I go, bro, is this Moses Brown? And yeah, he was there. He's trash. Remember how bad he was? Or remember people frothed over him for getting a 2020 game for the Thunder? He's terrible. He's gone. That's an improvement. But again, this team is a little weird. They've still got the worst, close enough to the worst head coach in the NBA. But the team is better. They're not making noise for the play-in. They're not making noise for the playoffs. I'm pretty sure they're going to shut down a bunch of guys as well to try and acquire another top 3 pick next draft. And I worry about some of their picks, Chris Murray, that were terrible selections and just aren't going to pan out. Like Ran Repair, maybe he's bad. But you've got enough there to make them better. Brogdon is a good player, but he doesn't play. Doesn't fit on this team, and there's just no need. It's duplicative skills or duplicative positions with Simon, Scoot, Sharp. Don't need them. So they're better. Without question to me, they are a better team than last season. Whether the record is better, that's going to depend a lot on how hard they tank. But they are a better team than what they were last season. And then we go on to this Utah Jazz team, which, the way things stand with their offseason, I think that it is a neutral. It could very easily turn into a situation where this team is worse. They have half tanked. They've put the tank tip in the last 2 years, but they're not going full grab the shoulders all the way. They play well. They've got a good coach. They've got good players. And then Danny Ainge says, I need you guys to lose 20 games in a row. Danny, my guy, if that is your idea, do stuff at the start of the season. You can't tell the coaches and the players not to play. So you do it for the last 20 games, and then leave yourself at pick 9, pick 10, pick 8, whatever. Do it early. But we know Danny Ainge has a fantasy player's mentality a lot of the time. I'm only doing a trade unless I destroy the opponent. And that does lead to some, floating. As of this point, Lauri Markkanen is on this team. And you could easily look at the comings and goings on this team and say, maybe they did get better. They in the draft, number 10, Cody Williams, who really struggled at Utah Summer League, looked better in Vegas Summer League. I'm still on the fence about him as a prospect and any sort of star upside, but that's, again, look at that more in the Summer League stuff. He will play some minutes, and one thing I will say really positive about Williams is this team had no forwards, no threes at all. He's probably not going to start, but who knows? If Markkanen's gone, what they do with John Collins. Walker Kessler's been discussed in trades. There is an opportunity in the future for him to be the starting 3 very easily. Probably not this year. Isaiah Collier, some really good games in some leagues. Some others that struggled, but I thought he flashed enough for me to say, 29 was silly. Is he a starting point guard instead of Keontae George or next to Keontae George? I think yes, long term. If you want to lose games, you just make him the starter immediately. We know rookie point guards. Him and Keontae George in the backcourt means you lose a lot. Of course, you can't really do that because Colin Sexton's there, but maybe he's another guy that moves. And then the guy that fell, Mormon legend Kyle Filipowski, down to pick 32. There's no real space for him at the moment, but again, a lot can clear out. He's a short-armed, defensive, shot-blocking, scoring, passing, shooting big man. And the only negative there is the short arms. Everything else I love. He's not going to have an impact this season with things the way they are. Collins, Hendricks, Kessler, it's all still there. But I love what they did in the draft. In free agency, I have no understanding, apart from him being white, as to why they signed Drew Eubanks. And they brought in Tavion Kinsey on a two-way. Eubanks, like there's Kessler, Filipowski, Collins. Why is he there? I don't think he's going to play. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And who do they lose? Chris Dunn goes out in that sign and trade that enabled them to bring in Russell Westbrook so they could waive him for the second time and they get a second rounder out of it. Was it a second rounder or a second rounder swap? I don't know. But Chris Dunn's gone and he was really good for this team. But it just clears up some minutes for Isaiah Collier to play. The man who's the starting point guard to begin last season is not employed in the NBA anymore, Taylor Horton-Tucker, because he's terrible. We'll see whether he ends up going anywhere, but him leaving is a huge win. He's bad. Omer Yurtseven, another guy that's flashed some stuff at times, who I also think is not very good. He's unsigned. Michael Potter, Kyra Lewis Jr., who I was very high on and got that one very wrong. He's been bad. And Luka Šarmanić, who started games down the stretch. So they lose. Tank Commander Horton-Tucker, Yurtseven, Potter, Lewis, Šarmanić, and done. Anyone there that's good is done. And they bring in 3 first-round draft picks. Overall, I think they're marginally better, but you don't want to rely upon rookies to make your team better. Of course, if they move on from Markkanen and get like Pajemski and draft picks or Kuminga back, they're worse. But the way things currently stand, I think it's relatively neutral. I think it's relatively neutral for the Utah Jazz at the moment. Of course, all of that is subject to change. What's not subject to change is me telling you that you should hit the thumb up and subscribe on YouTube, and on audio, you should follow this podcast. And that's the 6 NBA divisions recap for their off-season. Tomorrow, we will start to get into Summer League recaps, diving into those guys, and that will then seamlessly push us into a Dynasty Rookie Rank update. Dynasty Rookie Ranks, I guess we'll call it 2.0. After some Summer League games and a readjustment of the board, which you don't want to go whole hog like I saw, and I talked about this on Twitter the other day, how someone said, we're going to do a redraft of the NBA draft based on what we've seen at Summer League, which, of course, is an insane thing to do. Like, they put Terrence Shannon at number 5, like, very similar to the, hey, we'll take Jaime Jaquez at number 2 in the redraft that people did last season. That's an insane thing to do. Also was completely inconsistent, their methodology, but whatever. But it's okay to have a change in opinion. Like, I can tell you right now that Khalil Ware, who I had at like 10 or 11, he's looked even better than that. I probably will move him up. I had Tyler Smith pretty high, when while I liked what he did and he fit the role with Milwaukee, I'll probably move him down a little bit. There's going to be adjustments. It's okay to do that. You don't want to make gigantic, wild adjustments. Like, will I move Alex Sarr from number 1? I'm debating it. We'll see. So, it's going to be interesting. And that's what we're going to do over the next few shows. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.